It's December 18th, and welcome to episode 112 of the Driving Forward podcast. Whether you're joining us live or listening on one of our 18 platforms, including Reese Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time, we appreciate your support. This is our last live podcast of the year. This wraps up actually our third season. Our first season was just a couple months long. So this wraps up the third season, and we're going to start our fourth season here soon. So January 1st, next week. Yeah, there we go. Next week, we have Julie Andrich. We're going to run an episode from earlier 2025 with Julie Andrich. She's the CEO of Autumn Transport. This was a great episode. It's one of the few, if any, podcasts. I think it was the only one that Julie had been on, or one of the very few that she'd been on. I don't know how many she's done since. We need to have Julie back on. She's a wealth of knowledge, wonderful person to interview, and it was a great episode in general. I think it was from late first quarter, early second quarter that we had a discussion, and just loved that discussion. So tune in if you have nothing but the better to do next Thursday on Christmas. So January 1st, we'll be running some unseen footage from Matt's 2025, as well as some footage from the I-80 Trucker Jamboree. This includes Jessica Howington with United Commercial Insurance. And I'm so glad I got to know Jessica better at Matt's this year. I've known of her. We've maybe been on a few different podcasts here and there, especially with the Logistics Lounge. Their booth was right next to ours, and we certainly hope to see them this year at Matt's as well. Following Jessica on this show, we have Bill Bess. Bill Bess is the Director of Carrier Development at Allen Lund. And Bill is an OG in the industry, no matter how you look at it, absolute OG. I actually met Bill at Matt's for the first time, and then we ran into him at the I-80 Jamboree. Why am I drawing a blank? I-80 Jamboree. He pulls up in Allen Lund's truck, and he was parked next to the freight movement booth. But Bill's been around the industry forever. He started at CH Robinson in 1974 and then switched to Allen Lund in 1984, and he's still there today. He says he's retired, but that's not really true. The man has stories. So listen into that one. I do need to circle back with Bill and get him on for a full episode at some point where we're not surrounded by tornadoes and crazy weather. Not to mention noise. And we're capping that whole episode off with Jamie Hellbent-Hagen. We got about half an episode in with him before he got pulled away earlier on in the year. So we're going to cap January 1st episode off with Jamie Hagen, who's just an absolute wealth of knowledge. Manifest 2026 is February 9th through 11th at the Venetian Resort and Casino. We're expecting 7,000 people this year, including 2,000 shippers, 1,500 startups and investors, 400 speakers, and everyone is coming from over 60 countries. 60 countries are being represented. February 9th in the evening, we're putting on a freight movement event from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. at Prohibition, 1923 Prohibition. We're going to put a link to sign up for this in the event. Currently, we have a couple of sponsors. We're talking to a few others as well. Should be a great event. We're expecting 500 people. So not just a great event, an event that's going to be talked about for the whole year. Last year, we did it well. We learned a lot. We got complained about for fire code violations. We had a line going through the entire casino. It was not good. This year, we learned from that. We've got VIP access. We've got regular access. We've got a band. We've got cocktails. We've got special cocktails We've got photo booths. It'll be interesting. So sign up for this event. And also, if you haven't picked up your tickets yet for Manifest, use the Freight Movement code for $200 off. We'll throw that up here as well on the comments. Just click that link and grab your tickets there if you can. We'd appreciate it. So 2025 didn't just challenge trucking. It exposed trucking. It exposed what's broken, what's outdated, what's been held together with duct tape, tribal knowledge, and pure willpower. We're talking freight recession, pure pressure, heading into the holidays, fleet reductions, closures, M&A, the FMCSA tightening the screws, from driver school compliance to ELD certification. Freight fraud is still getting bolder. Lawsuits are getting uglier. And we'll talk about the other side of it all as well. The companies investing in clean data, automation, and AI that are finding margin, control, and confidence where everyone else is just trying to breathe. Today, I'm joined by Robert Bain, Susan Mayo, Ed Streeter, and Michael Demers for a candid, no BS year-end conversation about what actually happened, what we learned the hard way, and what the smartest operators are doing right now to win in 2026. If you're responsible for keeping freight moving, if you're an owner, a driver, a dispatcher, if you're in operations, brokerage, a shipper, or a tech partner, this is your moment to step back, take a hard look at the board, and decide how you're going to play the next hand. So let's bring in the crew and start our discussion.
Hey, Nate.
Good afternoon.
Bain's looking a little weird. Bain, what's going on with you? We're going to start off with the odd duck.
Well, first of all, weird is subjective, so I appreciate you don't push your values on me. Secondly,
fair enough.
We've had some weather here on the East Coast, and so there's been some work being done on lines. And apparently, the area where I'm residing was deeply impacted by the 2 power lines that got downed, including the cell tower that is nearby. So we have been mobile all morning. It's been super fun to do so. So yes, maybe look a little small, not my normal way, but trust me, still gigantic.
And to be expected. Susan, you jumped out there, so it's good to see you. Thanks for coming on. You want to do a quick introduction?
Yep, Susan Mayo. I'm the Director of Sales here at GLCS. I've been in the industry about coming up on 34 years now. I started at DAT Christmas of 1992. Just hit me the other day. So big anniversary week for me in the industry.
Christmas in 92. Wow.
Christmas in 92. I literally started at their Christmas party in Brentwood, Tennessee. We were across the street from Comdata at the time. And the rest is happy history. So, yeah, great to be here. Thanks.
Then, Ed, let's go with you next.
Hey, Nate and everybody. Ed Streeter. I'm a senior consultant here at GLCS, right now working as a project manager. But I've been in the industry a number of years as well. I'm not going to give a number like Susan did, but it's been a long time. Started off on the operations side, been on the IT side for 20 plus years. And seen it all. So, but great to be here. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And last but not least, and the latest to arrive is Mr. Michael Demers.
By the skin of my teeth. I will give a number. I think it's 25. And that's through a variety of roles, warehousing and distribution and transportation in the carrier side and technology, and now on the consulting side and project management. And I would be remiss if I did not say, Susan, when you said those dates, the first thing I thought was, my God, we were still on dial-up. Can you imagine?
If you even had dial-up.
If you even had dial-up, but can you imagine the astronomically high volume of data that is sent through the pipes today trying to do any of that nonsense on dial-up, it would not work.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I talk about this frequently. You think about the amount of data that we moved back then, or the KPIs that we tracked back in the 90s. So you had maybe 20 or 30 tops, if you even tracked them. Revenue per mile was a calculation that took a minute. You certainly weren't getting it live time for the most part. You might have got if you were running cards, if you're running a T card system, you would fill that out on the card. So you'd know what it is on the load that you have that you're looking at. But to figure it out for the week for the truck, sometimes that was a little bit more complicated. So, so today, the amount of data that we move, if we would have tried to do it back then, I mean, you would have had to have an army of 386s. So it wouldn't have worked. So absolutely. Well, I appreciate y'all coming on. We haven't done a GLCS crew in some time. It's been a busy year. It's been a very busy year. We just had our company Christmas party. We do a remote Christmas party every year because we're scattered throughout North America. And I wish we did one in person, but the logistics behind that and the impact to customers is kind of tough. So, but it's great to see everyone. Yesterday it was great to see everyone, and even then we couldn't get everybody on because once again the impact to customers just pulling everybody off. But so let's just start around robin. I don't necessarily need to throw the topic out, but Ed, why don't we start with you? I know you had some ideas that you wanted to talk about, so why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, I think the main one, and I was looking at some of these numbers this morning, the freight fraud and how it affected 2025. The number that I saw was somewhere between $500 and $700 million annually that it's hitting trucking companies just from, double brokering and fake carriers and all of that stuff. And like, what do carriers do to, negate that from happening? And what can they do to make that, to make themselves resilient with those types of things? And I'm sure that there's been a lot of companies out there that fall victim to it, and they may not even know they fall victim to it,
Well, they eventually do when you don't get paid. So
yeah.
That's usually the case. Or if you're billing a customer that doesn't exist. So, you have plenty of those scenarios, and it's a horrible issue that just continues to grind. And it's one that continues to get larger, but it's also being measured more, I think, too. It's one that we see everywhere, and it's one that goes very closely with cybersecurity for us. So those are very hand in hand in many cases, because those companies that get exploited many times have poor cyber defense to them. The data that they're acquiring, it's not always that case, but in many cases the fundamentals that aren't being practiced are the fundamentals that need to be in place for cybersecurity as well. So I know, Bain, you know a lot about this stuff too. So why don't you respond?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very much a thing. I don't even think. I mean, we know the data all says it. I don't truly believe we understand how deep it goes. If I'm being honest, Ed, I think those numbers are pretty low. This is very much one of those where if we look back 50 years ago, well, this was never going on. No, they were just better at hiding it. There has been fraud, there has been theft, there's been this type of stuff, since deregulation and since before that. And the difference is now we have so much more connectivity in our universe that we see and we hear about this stuff immediately. It's not like, oh man, for the last 20 years there's been a theft ring in Southern California. Now we hear about it immediately. So the downside of this is, of course, the bad guys have just so many smart people working for them. So it comes back to, as you said, Ed and Nate, that there is cybersecurity, there is a resilience, and there is a shift from, while relationships are incredibly important in the industry, you almost do have to have that trust no one mentality, regardless of how long you've known them, which is frustrating because ultimately we still are a very relationship driven industry. But I mean, again, we see how rampant this problem is, and no one is immune. I don't care if you're a 1 truck operation or a 10,000 truck operation, no one is immune.
I always thought, I'm sorry, go ahead, Susan.
Well, ATA was back on Capitol Hill. Chris was back on Capitol Hill this week. I think it's like his 9th time talking about this and the need for federal involvement. They've got to have centralized data and coordination. Lots going on at the state and local level, but that federal response is absolutely needed. So to be more proactive about it, and the strategic side of it, not the, necessarily the old school, we're stealing the load, although that still happens. But Ed, I actually saw a number in the billions. I think if you go across the supply chain, yeah, it's like 35 billion. It's insane. It's insane. And, obviously I wanted to kind of brush up on stuff this morning, and I went down a rabbit hole with that. So, yeah, and obviously, we're talking to our customers every day, but I think the biggest thing for me this year is getting more mentally engaged and talking to our customers, not necessarily about what we're doing with them that day, but everything else that's scaring them. You never know how we're going to be able to help. But this one jumped out in a big way to me, especially at ATA earlier this year. So it was on almost every conversation we had outside of the sessions.
Wow. And I was going to say, I always thought that this was primarily a brokerage issue, but that's not the case, is it?
No, it's the entire supply chain.
Yeah, it's everyone really. So if you get into it, I think there's lots of times a broker is being exploited in some way, shape, or form, but many times either the trucking company or the broker is typically being exploited in some way, shape, or form. But that could be a carrier is being exploited to a broker, and then a bad actor a bad actor truck is going and picking up a load, even though they're saying they're another carrier. So the broker is actually the one that's taking a hit, and then they're paying a carrier that they don't realize they're paying, or something along those lines, or they're losing a load and having that load being stolen. Now, in some cases, a carrier will pick up a actual carrier will pick up a load and take it to a warehouse that they don't even realize is not the actual consignee. So they'll pick up a load and take it to a warehouse that is not authorized, right? So if you saw the Guy Fieri documentary, they took that alcohol to a warehouse that it wasn't even supposed to go to, and it was delivered to a bad actor, or not even a warehouse that was bad actor, I think, and then it was moved to a different location from there. So you'll have good actors involved and part of this scheme without them even realizing they're acting as part of a scheme. So it's very advanced stuff. And as we continue to uncover all of those things, you start realizing, hey, there's things that go on here that you don't realize are going on. There's data trails that you're not expecting. There is behaviors that you're not expecting. And it does come down to, a lot of people respond. It comes down to verifying, in some cases, automations here are a bit of the problem where, we're relying upon some level of automation that we weren't relying on, or that we weren't relying upon before. And so this is going to be an issue in 2026. There's no doubt about it. I think it's going to continue to be a large issue. And until, I agree, Susan, the federal government steps in, and they are stepping in. There's no doubt between dealing with CDL mills, dealing with those that should not have CDLs, handling these companies that are chameleons and creating multiple companies underneath one person. So when one company fails, they can go to the next company and go to the next company without creating much of an issue. So there is an attack. The question is how fast can they respond? And it's the government. They're here to help, right? So
I do gotta say, based on what's gone on over the last probably 27 months or so, people got to give more props to Dale Prax and what he's done. Like he was very much the one man shouting from the mountaintop for a long time, and he has made significant change in this specific area that you just talked about, Nate, with the chameleon carriers, the how they're registering the FMCSA and how they're giving authorities and MCs out. Dale has done a tremendous amount of work that the industry, I don't think, truly realizes how much of an impact he's had just yet.
Yeah, I agree, and I think his partnership with Truck Stop is going to help that. That kind of gives
Absolutely.
him deeper pockets to work with and whatnot. So I think he'll certainly make bigger strides. So
100%.
Let's go on to another topic. Michael, you got one?
Well, thinking about the CDL mills, and there's been a lot of talk about dangerous drivers and drivers that clearly get quite, why are you even on the road? But there's a couple angles to this. One is the crackdown from FMCSA and DOT. But to me, the CDL mill is just part of a bigger problem with how the industry self-regulates when the actual real regulations are not enforced very well at all. And in a lot of cases, the onus falls on the companies. You are your own best defense. And when it comes to recruiting, and you see a lot of companies feel a lot of pressure around, I got to get drivers behind these wheels. I got to keep these trucks moving. And the first thing that goes out the window is due diligence on the front end, because the pressure is so high to get drivers into those vehicles. But it becomes almost like a preventative maintenance issue. If you don't have due diligence on the front end, at the end of the day, the company is holding the bill. It doesn't matter if they can turn around and eventually say, well, the regulators should have shut down this CDL mill. Your hiring manager brought this person in. Did you guys even do a road test? Did you actually vet that this guy knows how to drive? Because the risk is so high. Once that person is in your company, it's very expensive to get them out. And to me, this is one of these silent killers of even well-run companies, that if you don't manage who is entering at the ground floor, you can wind up with a big problem down the road, and it will likely be because of a massive accident.
So I agree with that completely. When you get into a plaintiff attorney scenario, and there were several topics at ATA MCE this year, and tort reform was one of them. And certainly cybersecurity and freight fraud was another one. But tort reform has been a discussion for a long, long time. So whether it is an area that has some form of control around it, I think ELDs are a good example of this right now. They're self-regulated, and they're being switched to where they are not self-regulated anymore. But it doesn't really matter what that is. So, because when you get in front of an attorney, and you have, when you're in front of a plaintiff attorney, they have a roadmap to finding a chink in your armor, and they're going to find that, regardless of what that is. They know how to expose your organization because they're trained to do it. There's literally legal organizations or legal there's organizations for attorneys out there that explain how to work against trucking companies. And so if you have an accident, if you have something like that, and you are 100% okay, they're going to go through, or you would think you're 100% okay, they're going to go find the smallest denominator. And there are a million variables that can be what those denominators are, going all the way back to where that driver potentially got their CDL and whether or not they could be on the road or not. In the case of Werner's scenario, that I think was a driver that was in training. So, and that's where they circled around that. But whatever the case may be, they're going to lock on to these things. So your processes, your clean data, your clean processes, and how you work through everything, I think, is extremely important as you move forward. Anybody else have anything to talk on that?
I think the one extra thing I would add to that is that if you're looking at who you're bringing in as a driver, certainly there is another level of trust there where you've got drivers who will be going into your customers' facilities. So knowing that, like, make sure you do your due diligence as we've talked about, because this person is going to have access to client information simply by going there to do their job. And if you don't 100% trust that person that you are bringing in to do that, then maybe that should give you pause.
Definitely. I have a brother-in-law who drives a truck, and he drives in the construction industry, and he has shared, I'll just say, some scary stories with me with regards to a couple accidents that he's witnessed, and the driver who was driving the other truck that was involved in the accident, and his inability to speak English and to communicate with the law enforcement and whatnot. It can be scary to see when you hear stories like that. And I know most companies don't do that, but when you hear stories like that, it's scary.
One of the aspects of this, and nobody ever wants to spend a nickel on training, but the idea that, you take a new applicant and he's got his shiny new CDL, the laminate is still warm on it because he just came from passing his test. You put that guy in a truck, you are just asking for it. And in my jurisdiction where I am, we have had an absolute epidemic of bridge strikes and overpass strikes from drivers. And it's baffling to everybody. It has gotten so bad that it has become an internet meme that there will be an 18-wheeler hitting an overpass. It almost seems every 2 weeks. The shocking part is these overpasses have not lowered their height. It's been the same height for 50 years. So why is it we keep having drivers hitting these overpasses? And every single time you unpeel that onion, it's a brand new driver that did not know what they were doing. And just to the simplest thing of managing trailer height, they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, very well. I think it all comes down to just predicting everything that potentially could go wrong and trying to shore that up. But in this particular industry, you are bound to be taking on some substantial risk. And that, so the side of what was said at ATA was there is a substantial chance that the only way that we will actually get to the tort reform that we need is if the government steps in. So there's just very likely no chance that we're going to achieve what we need to until the government steps in and says, listen, we're no longer going to have these nuclear scenarios, which I know, different scenario in Canada than in the US, but probably the same. Where we're going to limit, there's some math that maxes this out instead of, takes it to some astronomical number. So, all right. Well, we're coming up on the mid-hour here. So it looks like both I dropped and Bain dropped. So I'm not sure if that's a StreamYard thing or because we're not anywhere near in the same spot. But why don't we circle back? We're going to take a brief break. If you have any questions for us, pop them in. If you want a topic that we want to hit, drop that in and we'll hit up some topics. But we'll be back in about a minute and a half and chat with y'all then.
If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the time-critical world of trucking and logistics, every minute counts. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT and technology services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep trucking and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them with our industry connections and proactive approach. We keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise.
And we're back. Must have finally just lost Bain entirely. So,
He just gave up.
all right. What's that?
Said he gave up.
Yeah, fair enough. So, all right. The one news story I wanted, and of course, I can't get it to pop up. I wanted to pop this news story, and then Susan, I'm going to have you pick a topic. And of course, I always have the best time sharing my screen here. So let's see, lighted truck parade. So this is a, let's see if I can zoom in. So lighted truck parade. There were 75 participants. Actually, there was another one in Michigan as well, but basically a bunch of trucks get together. There was one in Michigan. I thought that's actually the one I was selecting. That actually was even bigger, but lighted truck parade. This one, I think if I play it, let's see if I can get that. I don't know if I can get the audio, but I'll play it for a minute. So it's just a whole bunch of trucks coming through. I don't know if you can hear the audio or not, but
Yeah, we can hear it.
is the audio coming through?
Yep, we
Yeah.
hear it.
Okay. So, but just a cool Christmas parade. They've been doing more and more of these throughout the country. More and more trucks get together, throwing a bunch of lights on their truck. The one in Michigan, which is the one I was actually going to go to, started at a truck stop in like Detroit and went all the way to Grand Rapids. And it had hundreds of trucks. So this looks like it's I selected the wrong one on the fly. I'll kick that one off. But anyway,
You have
So-
a big truck. You could do that.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, so there's a couple people in our neighborhood that have lights like that on their cars. So you go past it, they keep them on all the time. So it's kind of almost a driving hazard if you ask me, because they'll go down city streets like that all the time. So I don't know. You guys have any people in your neighborhood that run vehicles around with Christmas lights on their cars like that?
My neighbor puts lights on her horse and rides it over.
Where I'm at, people put lights on their golf carts, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So yeah, that makes more sense. Do you put lights on your goats, Susan?
No, but I should.
Yeah. There you go. Goated or lighted goats. So that put like a goat jacket with lights on it and have them prance around. That would
And
be,
have them go insane. Yeah. Sounds great.
all right. So next topic, Susan. What do you have? What do you want to go on?
I'm going to turn my camera off after I say it. AI.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was where I was going to go if you didn't go there, so that's fine. AI and automations. So what do you have?
I just have an observation. I'm going to leave the difficult stuff up to you guys, but it's just giving me those vibes of when there were, a million ELDs coming on the scene. Now that's happening with TMSs. AI is everywhere, but I still feel like, well, here's what's happening. We're getting asked a lot by some of these companies that do this fancy new work and augment processes and bolt on to things. We're still being approached because we know the industry and we know the customers. So we're seeing a lot of companies that are building great things and have great tools, but it's very unsettling that there doesn't seem to be that deep knowledge, that deep industry knowledge. Things are being done in a vacuum again. Obviously people approach us about integrations all day long, but more and more it's about literally what these companies do, what should they build, those kinds of things that I think should be table stakes for any company in technology that is moving into an industry or presenting themselves as a solution. And it surprises me every day, the questions that happy to have these relationships and engagements, but it still shocks me that people have to ask companies like ourselves, because we're the ones that, we're working with almost 400 companies on a monthly basis. So, I want to hear and see that these new kids on the block are actually immersing themselves in the industry that they're building for.
So I agree with that point. So I think you look at people who label themselves as AI or automations, and some come to market with one solution, and we've seen a lot of those. And that solution better be very, very good if you're only bringing one use case, because one use case today for a carrier or a broker is they're wanting to automate their entire organization. Is not just how do I automate this one thing, it's how do I automate my company, or how do I take it to a level of automation, and what does that roadmap look like? And the difficulty is I don't want to have 40 vendors involved in this, and in many cases there's poor implementation, there's fails at implementations, there's all of those things. So and this isn't just those that define themselves as AI organizations. Some of them are bigger companies than that have added AI into them. So I agree with you there. And there's a lot of organizations that have this out there. So navigating that field has become very difficult. And then navigating the implementations, and where do you go first? As a company, where do you go first? What's the best thing to do first? What's the best possibility for success when you have unclean data? How do you clean it? How do you clean your processes? How do you deploy? And the comments that we hear about, this is easy, we're going to have you implement it in 2 weeks, 6 months, 6 weeks, whatever, and how often that is a failure. I mean, they're very likely potentially able to do that in certain scenarios, but with the size of the organizations we work with, you're not able to do that. You're just simply not able to do that. And it's not the solution's problem, other than that they don't understand that their customer is not able to do that. So, Ed or Michael, you got something to add on that?
Yeah, to me, the term AI, and I was laughing when Susan said she was going to turn her camera off after this. It's incredibly popular in a lot of industries to say, well, AI is going to fix a lot of these problems because the computer is so smart and it can do all these things that took slow humans too long to do. And in some cases, yes, that's true. But as we've seen in our everyday lives, anybody who's had to interact with any creative-based content that was created by AI, you can spot it a mile away, and it's not very good. And there's a reason for that, because AI is not that creative. It repurposes things that it learned from, but it can only regurgitate what was fed into it. And so in our industry, if you have a new TMS coming along and saying, hey, our price point is so low because we built the whole thing with AI. Okay, that's great for you, but let's actually see it work. And it's not just some of these new entrants that are coming in claiming that AI is the great leveler, that they can just build everything with AI. It's even established technology providers that are leaning into AI, and they should be investigating it for what it potentially can do for them and can augment for them. But the fundamental idea is that AI can take care of repetitive, simple tasks that you don't need a human to do because the failure rate is low. You do not want to have AI venturing into areas where the failure rate or the potential damage is very, very high without human observation or human management. And I think this is where people put way too much onus in the ability of AI to accomplish things quickly. AI can do a lot of things quickly. It doesn't mean it's going to do them right. And you still need to have that human come along afterwards and sign off on it, that this thing is functional. And the one last part of this is downstream. So you go and get yourself involved with a company that relies heavily on AI. Out of the box, this looks amazing. The price point's very low, and boy, oh boy, does this thing ever seem to work quickly and well. Until there's a problem. And that's when you find out that your AI-generated system is bumping into some really messy data that needed to be cleaned up. But it's only going to be a human with proper decision-making skills that can decide, oh yeah, this is how we're going to clean up our rate tables. This is how we're going to clean up our mileage buckets. Then put the tool in place to go and do the cleaning. But if you let an AI decide how it's going to clean up your mileage buckets for you, because shouldn't AI be able to do that, you are going to find yourself in a world of hurt.
There's use cases where it all fits together, and I mean that's to the point of, you know, you look at development and companies taking that development capability to the 60th percentile. There's a human interaction with AI that's fairly healthy. To have it completely replace is difficult, and then there are linear processes where AI and automations become very reasonable. So, and then there's actually the use of AI to clean data, where if you are doing the same process over and over to clean your data, that's actually a linear process to clean your data. So that's the capability of cleaning your data can be done too if you're using the same thing. Now, some of the things that you just said, if someone understood what you just said, you know, those are difficult legacy programs that are tough to pull forward. So yes, it all comes down to the application of the product that you're trying to pull forward and take advantage of. But it's not always as simple as what some people think it is. But one thing that we look at is, okay, you know, it wasn't that long ago I was in one of our customers that has well over 100 automations or agents deployed. If you add it all together, there's a substantial number of automations and agents at one location or at one customer. That next day I walked into a customer that's of very similar size, and these are not small organizations. That customer had zero automations, zero agents. And you could tell the difference between those companies. One was very clean and crisp, and why I don't have to guess, or I could guess that the net impact to the company was there. The other, I know that there's a substantial difference in net. I definitely am aware of that. So you could just feel the difference. One was slightly chaotic, and the other one was very crisp and controlled. And you know, whether you reel that back a little further and just say this is a controlled process that has been automated, well, I think that's the foundation. That might have been a controlled organization before they automated it. It might have had that feeling before it, but now it's potentially less headcount, or that headcount's been redeployed to do something else. So, all right, who has the next topic, or is there something else we want to cap on AI? Ed, did you have anything you wanted to throw on there?
I have one example, kind of building off of what Susan opened with companies coming into the industry, not knowing the industry. The project that I'm working on now, there was a possibility or potential for an automated process to take place. And so they reached out to a potential customer or a company that could provide that service. And they literally set up the demo in 20 minutes and did the demo and knew nothing about really the trucking industry or anything. And on the surface, it looked very cool. Like, this is really cool. And everything was going along very good. But when you just peel that layer back a little bit and you start asking, well, what about this? And what we needed to do this, and we need to do this, and we need to do that. That's when you started seeing where things could fall away. So I think AI has its place in the industry. And I think, if you look at the companies that are utilizing it well, as you said, Nate, they've reduced headcount, they've got faster billing and all of that stuff, because it's handling those redundant tasks that they don't have to pay somebody to sit there and do anymore. But I think with regards to complex tasks, that's when it can get a little bit tricky when you're trying to implement that into the industry.
Agreed. And to cap that one a little bit, I think a lot of the new solutions out there, whether they're AI driven or not, or almost every new solution is going to have AI in it. Most of them are venture back, and if they don't have AI in it, they're not getting any sort of funding. But a lot of them start out with smaller company customers, and one of the issues that we're seeing right now is as they progress into mid-market, they make a whole bunch of assumptions that the mid-market's going to respond like the small market responded, and then they fail. And so that's something that has to be considered. You're applying this to a small market organization. Now you're moving into mid-market. You need to understand that the mid-market is very, very complex, and they do things in different ways than the small market. Small market's much more linear. You have 10, 20, 30 trucks. You have 5, 10 brokers or agents. They work in a particular way. There's not a lot of variability to that. And if there is, they're willing to throw people at that problem. You have 500 trucks. They're not going to want to throw people at that problem. They want this process to work in a particular way. It needs to work this way. The payroll has to happen within a particular time period, sometimes immediately. There's a lot of customer customizations that need to happen, and they identify themselves that way for customers. So that's a failure. I think that's been happening over the last couple of years as well. So next topic, I want to talk about the difficulties that companies have experienced, not just trucking companies, but brokerages and freight tech as well. We've seen countless companies close over the last few years, but this last year has been especially difficult. We've seen several even in the last few weeks. One big operator with 10 roads, and then a couple here in Minnesota. So with I think it was Transport Design and Midwest, or not Midwest, but Minstar. So something with Midwest just popped up in front of me, but Minstar. So 2 100 truck fleets, not to mention many others. So what's the thoughts on the market and kind of the hard decisions that carriers are having to make? Anybody have some comments on that? Who wants to take it first?
I'll go first on this one. I think this year in particular, there's a lot of exposure. People are getting exposed to a higher level of risk for a variety of reasons, and margins in trucking are always tight anyways. So it doesn't take a whole lot of extra risk to bump you into a bad spot. And whether it's fluctuations in volume, and we've seen some wild fluctuations in shipping container volume into the West Coast from China, huge swings. We've seen massive changes in enforcement rules, which can have a big downstream effect because it directly impacts your driver pool. And we've also seen some wild swings in commodity prices due to tariffs, which can very quickly change a steady stream of business into a trickle or nothing. And if your business model is built on a couple of large customers in a specialized market, any one of those three things changing can put you under. If all three things are changing at the same time, it can be very difficult to negotiate your contracts properly or to even plan ahead 6 months. How many trucks and drivers am I going to need 6 months from now to do what? Is half my customer base still going to be in business in 6 months? So the level of market volatility is very, very high. And when you get into a situation like that, companies that were marginally operating or they seem to be okay just dialing that problem up by a few degrees puts them over the top, or under, I should say.
Are you finding that's the case in your area as well, Michael?
Yeah, I think it's industry wide. Volatility is the unpredictability of our market is always there, because trucking is the canary in the coal mine for the economy. We'll catch a cold before the economy catches a flu, but that front end risk that we hit first seems to be amplified, especially this year. And I know that in the past, Nate, you've had podcasts about this with capacity in the market at a base level, that there was extra capacity in the market. But I feel like with this extra volatility, companies that could have weathered, a bit of a storm are not able to weather that storm. And we're probably going to see some more companies, I think, leave the market, which in some cases may not necessarily be a bad thing from a market capacity standpoint, but it sure is volatile to the economy as a whole, because all of those folks have jobs and they those paychecks are gone.
So we're definitely seeing some upticks right now in the spot market. Whether or not they're going to last is questionable. So, but the positive is we're seeing some seasonality. We haven't really seen a lot of seasonality. We saw some last summer for a hot minute, but we haven't seen that in years. And so that means that potentially this capacity exit that we're having happen is having some response. But when you look at leading edge indicators, meaning the housing market, meaning consumer spending, just in general, every leading indicator that we've always used, corrugated boxes, nothing is really looking great right now. If interest rates drop, the housing market will potentially come back, but that will take 6 to 9 months. So there's a potential of this crawling back from a demand standpoint. And I don't think that we've ever seen a cycle flip from a capacity exit. So I think that's been said several times, that we've never seen a cycle change from a capacity exit. So at some point, we need to see a demand change in some way, shape, or form, and we're a long way off from that. So the only thing that we will see is, capacity exit. So the really, really bad market will get less bad. What we are seeing is, companies are gritty. They're able to figure out how to operate in this. And that's something that trucking companies and brokerages and everyone in logistics is really good at. We always figure out a way to get the job done and to stay in business. And the ones that we're seeing go out are the ones that have been linear, the ones that have really exhausted every possible chance. I mean, it was funny. The other day I was talking about CFI, and I said, watch about CFI. And the next day I said, watch CFI. There's something to talk about here. And literally the next day, Heartland made their decision on CFI. That was after everything else. I said, that one's there's going to have to be a decision made there. And sure enough, here it was. So, there are things that are going to happen. This next year could be ugly, but if the shift continues to happen, those companies that hang on are going to be strong. Those companies that continue to operate and don't make horribly poor decisions. But you also continue to have the stack placed against you. You have emission standards that are coming that potentially could increase a truck $20,000 to $30,000 more just in 2027. You have other items that are coming down the pipeline that aren't looking real great for employment standards. You have a variety of things. So insurance and all the things that we just talked about. So we're continually in a large battle that struggles. So I'll step up off my soapbox. We have 5 minutes left. So who has another topic? Susan, you got something? Nope.
No, not another
Nope.
topic. Nope.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
Well, we didn't really talk about what we're expecting in 2026 as far as the industry-related items, but
Throw it out there.
so one of the things that I was thinking was, and that I've seen from what I've read is trucking companies tend to be pulling away from that big bang system implementation. Hey, we're going to go buy this new TMS and we're going to send it out to all of our 20 terminals all at once, and boom, off we go. We're live and off, and we're good. It seems like these companies are moving more towards a phased rollout, and not just specifically to the project I'm working in, but I've read about this in a couple of the industry articles where companies are moving towards that and doing a phased rollout, whether it's a TMS implementation or any type of associated application that's going on. And I don't know if you guys have seen anything like that or what you've read or heard.
I don't think anybody's announcing anything out there, but everybody's looking at the cheapest way of doing business. So, but I think that, any shortest denominator is going to be looked at any point. So what's the cheapest way to roll something out, ensure that you want to use it, and move forward in that route, whether it's through technology or anything. How can I spend money, ensure that it works appropriately before I spend a lot of money?
I think a lot of that, Ed, is also, it's indicative of the interconnected nature of our industry. The multiple systems that companies are dealing with now means that you can't do big bang change anymore, because the number of systems that need to be lined up to handle that change is so much more vast than what it was 10 years ago. And hey, a phased approach works.
Oh, it certainly works, and it's less complicated. So, you look at I think, Ed, on our side, we push for that. I mean,
we do.
We absolutely push on. We've been pushing that for many, many years. We want to find the easiest, simplest way and the best way to go. If this didn't take, we're rolling it back. So,
right.
What can we do to not create a large issue? What can we do if there's an unexpected issue when you go live with something? So, certainly that. And in a market where speed is important, but cost is more important, and getting it right. The value add here is we're going to implement something, we're going to do a project, and we're not going to get it wrong is extremely important. It's pretty rare to have something go wrong to a point that you've taken a complete misstep. So that, I think, is the course of action that a lot of people take now, and they're taking more of a smaller bite than what they would in the past. So, all right. Well, let's wrap this one up. So, Ed, how can everybody find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me here at GLCS, and they can just reach out to me any way they can, and they can reach out to me through this podcast as well.
Sounds good. Michael?
Same with me. You can find me through LinkedIn or through the GLCS website. Don't find me on Facebook. That's not a good idea.
I guess I've never looked for you there.
No, you don't want to.
Okay. And Susan?
You will not find me on Facebook either, and Instagram is my dog's account. So,
Fair enough.
Here, smayo@glcs.net. Don't look for me next week, please.
Yeah.
Next week?
Exactly.
Are you sure?
You're
not taking time off. Come on now.
After Wednesday. Forget my name.
crawling underneath a rock for a week. So I don't blame you. I think I'm going to do my best to do the same, at least for a couple of days. It needs to happen. I was just talking with somebody about that. And wow, this year is just not going to give up. So it just keeps coming and coming and coming. So, but it is what it is. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. Appreciate you always. So here we are, end of 2025. So thanks a lot for all your insight. We'll catch up with you all real soon.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you. All right. That's a wrap on 2025. And if this year taught us anything, it's that trucking doesn't break all at once. It breaks in 1,000 small ways. And when the pressure hits, when the cash gets tight, and when the wrong shortcut finally catches up, when we've always done it this way becomes the thing that puts you out to pasture. But here's the other truth. Even in a year like this, when people showed up, dispatchers kept freight covered when there was no margin for error. Drivers kept rolling when the world barely noticed. Owners kept making payroll when carrying stress they don't post about. Tech teams fought fires, cleaned data, and tried to build structure inside chaos. Families held it down at home while someone chased one more load, one more run, and one more week. So, as we close the year, I want you to hear me clearly. If you're still here, you didn't get lucky. You fought, you adjusted, you learned, you led, and you earned the right to walk into 26 with your head up and your eyes open. Take a breath, take a beat, celebrate with your people. Tighten the bolts where they're loose. Fix what's broken on purpose, not by accident. And don't drag the weight of the year into the next one without deciding what it taught you. From all of us here at Driving Forward, GLCS, and Freight Movement, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing the show. And thank you for being part of this industry that keeps the country alive, even when it's hard. I'm Nate Johnson. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Be safe out there, and we'll see you in 2026.